I think we are going. Yes. We should be live now.
No?
Yes, we are live.
I think we are going. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hello and welcome. I warmly welcome you to our 22nd webinar by the Academy of Space Renaissance International. My name is Sabine Heinz and I'm the person responsible for our webinar series. And on the 4th of July, it's Independence Day in the United States. I'm so happy that you have come to join us, and I very warm welcome our special guest today. It's Professor Michael Plichter from Frankfurt. Hello, Michael. Academy of Space Renaissance International. My name is Sabine Heinz and I'm the
Hello. Hi.
Hi. And Michael or Michael will speak today about how to build a planet. I'm so happy that again we have an art topic in our webinar series, and you can be curious what he will tell us about how to build a planet. And I warmly would like to welcome Adriano Ortino. He is our one of our vice presidents and former president and founder of SRI. Hello, Adriano.
Hi. Thank you very much. Welcome.
And we, since last week or our last webinar, we have a new member in our round, Cole Amargost. Hello, Cole.
Hello.
Cole is an intern with the SRI for the summer and has been helping out with administrative tasks and academic work. And he will inform us about the latest space news. Cole, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sabine. So to kick this off, I'd just like to speak about a recent deal signed by Sierra Space and the Turkish Space Agency. It was just
you share? Can you maybe share your desktop?
Oh, yeah, it's still in the OD or RTFD form, so it's not it's not for a presentation. It's just
okay. Then talk about like you want to talk.
Okay. So it's just an exciting step for collaboration between private and public space domains. Next, we have the first James Webb full color images will be released on the 12th of July, 2022. This is the biggest space observatory to be ever placed in space. So, and it's been for the last 6 months in a period of calibration. So we're all very excited about the possibility of usable data coming from that, and some of the first images of the outer reaches of space, as far as the James Webb Telescope can see. Next, we have a successful hot fire engine test in China, which is in alignment with the program they outlined in a 2021 white paper, in which they the main Chinese space contracting agency by the government sought to a launch vehicle to the moon by 2025. Or sorry, it's to launch a vehicle from China, a Chinese contractor, by 2025, with an eventual project reaching the moon. The next we have the SpaceX Starship Super Heavy rocket prototype has moved to the launch pad for tests. This is in the face of a lot of controversy with licensing and environmental pushback for the launch, but it appears that everything is going according to plan for SpaceX. Elon Musk has confirmed that they will launch the system this month with a launch to follow every following month. Yeah, so they still are in want of a launch license, but by all appearances, that will be attained by the end of July. And next, we have the U.S. military's X-37 Bravo space plane, which landed recently after a record 2 years in orbit. Much of what happens with the plane is classified, very top secret, but there were several projects which were released upon its launch 2 years ago. Some of them in collaboration with NASA, one in collaboration with the Navy. And then next we have a successful launch of the Capstone Satellite, which is part of the Artemis program, intended to test the orbital regime for the Artemis launch system. It's a small CubeSat, which is just going to give us information on how that specific orbital paradigm affects communications, and to make sure there are no anomalies that the Artemis system needs to look out for when the SLS eventually comes on board. Finally, we have a recent announcement by the UK government on their new space sustainability measures. The gist of it is that they want to try and encourage space companies and space development in their country within the context of sustainability, and to reward those who actually achieve space development in alignment with sustainable goals. So there's an economic side to it, and then they also announced some funding to British space programs, notably including a debris collection program. In SRI news specifically, the SRI is planning to hold a workshop at the UN in September, together with Thesis Worldwide, in collaboration with much of our members in the USA chapter. The Space Renaissance Art and Science Festival will be taking place at long last in Berlin this coming week. There are a lot of exciting events to happen, and a lot of work that has been put in by many of the SRI members. Thank you, Ms. Hatz and Mr. Attino. Finally, next we have SRI representatives to chair relevant workshops for the International Space University at Oeiras in Portugal. That'll be in the week after this one. So we're also excited about that. And finally, we have a celebration of 800 years for the University of Padua from the 7th to the 9th of September. So their Professor Foin and Mr. Attino participate in the organization of the space day of the event. So 800 years of space at the University of Padua on the 9th of September. Adriano Attino will chair the session on humanities and art in space, and Professor Foin will talk about the Space Renaissance art chapter.
Okay, thank you, Cole, for this, giving us the latest news. And I have seen that Michael's family is watching too, and Bernard has entered. Bernard is our president. Welcome, Bernard, and welcome, Antje and family.
And also, welcome. So I'm currently just arrived in Barcelona. So I just landed recently. So it's all interplanet travel. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, okay, let's see.
We don't see you. We don't see you.
Okay, let's see. Yes, I am in driving mode. I don't know, for some reason. Yes. That's me. I can show you beautiful Barcelona.
Oh.
Yes. So I was just in in Etna, where we had a great campaign testing multiple robots with the German Aerospace Center and also the European Space Agency, also with some astronauts. And yes, actually they're still continuing to test some rovers and some instruments and some communication system. So preparing for all the technology for space renaissance. Yeah, today I'm just on my way to the kickoff tomorrow of a meeting with the European Commission, as we have written a proposal for a program to train young professionals to become space entrepreneurs. And we've got the money. So tomorrow we are going to discuss with the European Commission how we distribute the money between 5 universities and also Europe on Mars. But clearly this could also fund some of our workshops and some of our training programs. So here is Barcelona. So I'm looking forward to hear the rest of the talk, and nice overview of the space news for Space Renaissance. So I really enjoyed to listen to that. All the best to you.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. And before giving the floor to you, Michael, I will introduce so shortly or briefly to our audience. Michael Plichter is born in Kassel, studied psychology at the University of Gießen and got his diploma in psychology from the University of Gießen. And he did his PhD degree at the University Hospital in Würzburg. He did his postdoc at Central Institute of Mental Health in Mannheim. And in 2015, he established the Plantenkugel Manufaktur, PKM, the first globe Mars and its canals. And in 2015-2016, he was the head of the laboratory from the University Hospital in Zurich in Switzerland at the Department of Psychiatry and Psychotherapy. And in 2017, he had a NASA-based moon globe with raised relief. And since 2017, he is a full professor of experimental psychiatry and at the Department of Psychiatry and Psychosomatic Medicine and Psychotherapy and at the University Hospital in Frankfurt. Michael, the stage is yours. We are really happy to have you here.
Thank you very much, Sabine, for your nice and kind introduction. So I'm going to share my screen now. So also from my side, hello to everybody. Thank you, dear organizers, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you here. And I will also send some greetings to my family in Mannheim, who's sitting in front of their computer and watching this wonderful session. So how to build planets is the topic of my talk. And we have chosen together, Sabine, we have chosen this title to evoke a little bit of confusion, I would say. So you should be triggered. What is this talk about? Is it about terraforming Mars? Is it a new project from Elon Musk? Or is it about a plan B after climate catastrophe? And I have to say, no, it is not. So my talk is about a very anachronistic thing. It is about traditional globe making. And I'm trying to tell you in my talk why I am building globes and how I am doing this. And so at the end of my talk, you should be also able to build your own globe. And you can build a globe whatever you want. You are not forced to make an Earth globe, but you could make also a globe of Venus or a globe of Jupiter or of our sun. So the field is open. But let me first start with the question, why and yeah, why should we build globes, and why do I build globes, and for what reason? First of all, my little manufactory, in my little manufactory, I'm building two different kinds of globes, and they are totally different by procedure and, of course, their appearance. In 2015, I built my first traditionally crafted globe, and it is a globe of planet Mars. However, it is not showing Mars as we see it today with our sophisticated technology, but it shows the fantastic map by Percival Lowell from the year 1905. So it is called Mars and its Canals. And it basically comes from a time where some people believe that there is intelligent life on planet Mars. And these Martians built a fantastic network of canals to transport melting water from the polar caps to the equatorial region, basically to grow crops. And of course, from our perspective of today, we laugh about this idea and find it very funny that people thought this. But it was at that time a big topic, at least in some areas. The second globe that I'm building is a totally different type of globe. It is a moon relief globe. So that means it is not just paper on a sphere, but it shows the most accurate data that we have of our companion. It is built on NASA data, and in particular, it is the Lunar Orbital Laser Altimeter data. So high-resolution data that I have transformed into a 30-centimeter moon globe, and you can touch and feel the craters and the mountains and the rims. And it also has a hand-painted albedo, so you can also see the major structure of the moon at daytime. And these are the two globes I will talk about. And first of all, let us start with the question, how did it start? Why I am interested in astronomy and globe making. And it started in my adolescence, where I got the most beautiful Christmas present that I have ever gotten from my parents. And that was a little Newtonian telescope. And I humorously call this little telescope the very cheap telescope. It was traded by a German coffee company, by Chibo. And it was very, very cheap, at a very small sized mirror, only 76 millimeters. However, I still got that little instrument, and I still use that little instrument. Whenever I'm going on vacation, for example, I take it with me, and I'm gazing at the stars and at the moon and at the planets. And I vividly remember when I unboxed this Christmas present and saw this wonderful telescope, I immediately mounted it and set it up. And because I haven't read the manual beforehand, I set it up in a wrong way. So I put it in my warm room and opened the windows, and outside it was very, very cold at that Christmas night. And so there was a large gradient between temperature inside the room and outside the room, and therefore the picture was very, very blurry. However, I pointed my telescope to a very bright stellar object, and I wanted to find out what this was. And I looked through, but the air condition, it was so wobbly, I could not really recognize what it was, but I realized, okay, this is something special. It is not an ordinary star, so just a little dot, but it was some kind of a disk, but it looked strange. In that night, I read the manual. I saw the problem that I set it up in the wrong way. Next night, I set it up in the right way. I put it on the balcony. I let cool out the tube so that the air temperature inside the telescope was the same as outside. And then I gazed at the same spot as the day before. And what I saw then very clearly was planet Saturn. And I'm sure all of you have seen Saturn through a telescope. If there is somebody who had not yet, I really recommend to do so, because this object is a very, very attractive object due to its three-dimensional appearance. Because of the ring and the disk, it's a very, very attractive object. So with that telescope, I then also looked at, of course, Jupiter. Also very attractive. You can see the atmospheric bands, even with this small telescope. And of course, then our moon. And even for such a small instrument, the moon is a very, very nice object because you can really see all the craters and all the details. And for most important, the dramatic interplay of light shadow effects are very, very impressive through this telescope. I also tried Mars, but this is a very difficult object for such a small instrument. I am based in Germany, and in Germany it is very difficult because Mars does not really reach a sufficient height on the night sky. Therefore, it is very close to the horizon, and therefore air distortion is quite large, and so you have not really a good view on Mars with such a telescope. And it is, of course, a very small disk. But I believe that I have seen, by adding a Barlow lens, that I could see the polar caps of Mars. Well, so these were my first experiences with astronomy and with the telescope. And inside me, it develops that I wanted to share what I have seen. And so the next step was for me to start with astrophotography. And remember, that was a time when I was an adolescent, so there were no digital cameras available for private persons at that time. So it wasn't a development. So I had to use an analog camera. And yes, I attached the camera towards my telescope, but you may see that I had one big problem. I did not really have an equatorial mounting. So the problem was that I could only use very, very short exposure times. And the whole mounting was quite unstable. So it was quite tricky to make photographs through this telescope. Together with a good friend of mine, Christoph Hillmann, to whom I still connected and to whom I still work together. He made films for my Moon factory and for the Mars factory. Together with him, we were able to make some, well, at that time I would say fantastic. Nowadays I would say, well, mediocre photographs. And here you see one of the first photographs of the Moon. And here I found very old photographs of Saturn with the ring and Jupiter. And if you have an acute eye, you see these two atmospheric bands here. From nowadays, I would say every mobile phone makes better photos than I was able to do. But for me, as a young kid, it was quite a cool thing. So I spent a lot of hours, night hours at my telescope, and it really opened for me a new field of interest. Of course, I was a young kid and I was also interested in science fiction, literature, and also movies. So one of my favorite books is from Jules Verne. It's Hector Servadac, The Career of a Comet. And it tells a story that people were hijacked by a comet and they make a large circle throughout the universe and at the end came back to planet Earth. But also I found very interesting H.G. Wells' First Man in the Moon, the book, as well as the old movie from the 60s. And what impressed me also was Jack Arnold with his very famous B movies made in the late 50s and beginning of the 60s. So that was the framework. Interested in astronomy, observing stellar objects, but also being interested in science fiction and the fantasy stuff of science. And what was maybe the most important thing is that I started to read a lot about astronomy. And I was really interested in finding out who were the first who mapped the moon, who were the first who mapped Mars, and how are these maps looking like. And of course, in these astronomy books, you will also find the infamous fantastic Mars Canal maps as an historic note. And for me as a kid, honestly spoken, these were the most interesting maps because they were so different and so colorful, and they evoke hope that there is intelligent life on other planets. And I found them very, very nice and very impressive. So that was maybe for me the starting point in my interest in the moon and the Mars and the universe. Then I started to study, and so the astronomy hobby was getting a little bit into the background. However, I still was collecting books, astronomy books, and always had an eye on where are these maps coming from, who made early moon maps and who made early Mars maps. And in 2010, I was happy to acquire the famous book by Nasmyth and Carpenter. It's called The Moon, and it's from 1874. And why is that book so impressive? It contains a set of marvelous moon plates, and they have such a three-dimensional appearance in a time where photography was not able to produce such nice pictures. So how did Nasmyth made these wonderful plates? And he made a trick and brought a little of magic into play. James Nasmyth observed the moon for decades, and he started to make drawings out of what he saw through his telescope. And he revised his drawings on, and after several revision cycles, when he was satisfied with the end product, he had a wonderful idea. He said he wanted to make super high resolution photographs of the moon surface, but the photographic technology was not developed far enough to really be successful there. And so he decided to make plaster models out of his drawings. And you see it here on the right side. This is an original Nasmyth plaster model made based on his drawings, three-dimensional plaster model. And this plaster model he took now and shed on oblique light. And when you shed on oblique light to a three-dimensional object like this, the dramatic effects of light and shadow will appear as it does in reality, or maybe hyperreality. So this, on the left side, is a photograph of a plaster model with oblique shed-on light. And people were flabbergasted about these plates, and it was a very successful book with many editions. And for me, it brought something into play that I was not aware of before. For me, I could say, well, okay, the observational part is obvious, it's nice, and also that you want to share what you see through the telescope was also part of my thinking. But then to say, let's now introduce handwork and transforming my drawings into three-dimensional objects. So we could say James Nasmyth was maybe the first analogous 3D printing machine. And to give you an impression how precise he worked, I show you three graphics. So here on the left side, you see one of his drawings of crater Copernicus. And what he used is gray cupboard as the basis, black chalk for the shadow effects, and white chalk for the highlights to cover the full contrast, range of contrast that he saw. And from this drawing, he built the plaster model. You see it in the central part of this slide. And you see that shadow light effect at the crater's boundary and the many, many details and the little craters. And here is a very recent photograph made with a MEAT 12-inch telescope. And you can now directly compare how accurate he was able to work. And I found this very, very cool. So James Naismith was one of the milestones that brought, again, fire in my astronomy interest. And now only two further milestones are missing for bringing me as a psychologist being a traditional globe maker. This is just a short note. There is a wonderful thesis from Laura Ramsey about the book of Naismith. It's called Phases of the Moon. And it's basically a study of this book and compares over the editions of the book the different printing techniques that are used and so on. Very interesting. And another short side note, James Naismith was not the first who produced models of the moon surface. There was also Henry Blunt, a British amateur astronomer, who also produced little moon models. But coming back now to the two missing milestones. In the year 2011 or 12, I was lucky enough to purchase a moon globe by Räth from the year 1963. And you see it here on the left side. So a moon globe of the last century. And what is so interesting with this globe? Of course, it's interesting. Moon globes are always interesting to have and to marvel at because it shows something that is strange to us. A globe of the moon looks always interesting. The color is nice and the details are nice. But if you spin that globe a little bit, it reveals the gaps in knowledge of mankind at that specific time. And so you see here now that about 1/4 of this moon globe is empty. Why is it empty? Yes, because this is the border of the area photographed by the Automatic Interplanetary Station LUNIC 3 on October the 7th in the year 1959. And for that reason, I purchased that globe because I found it so interesting to have a moon globe, which is an historic object because it shows where the border of our knowledge was in that particular year. The second thing that really brought me into action was that at the same time when I was starting to think, well, is it possible to build my own globe, was that Peter Bellaby, a British globe maker, was very, very active at that time. Let me go back to the moon globe. When I inspected carefully how that globe was built, and I inspected really careful because I paid a lot of money for it. At least at that time, it was around about 200 euros. That was a large money amount for me. And now I started to inspect this wonderful object and I realized how it is made. It is the first traditionally crafted globe that I have had in my hands, and I saw it was built out of 12 paper strips that are tipped on a cupboard sphere. And then I said, wow, I paid 200 bucks for a ball with paper strips on it, and I like it. So then in my head, the idea developed, I will try to build my own globe. And as I said, Peter Bellaby with his fantastic globes. And it's really, I really recommend you to go to his webpage and watch his work. He produced wonderful photographs, wonderful little films about his work, and you really feel his passion for this handcraft. And so I said, okay, now I start. And what type of globe should I build? The next question. A moon globe? No, I just have purchased one. I thought, no, this would not be the first thing I'd like to build. And then I remembered my own history in these first steps in astronomy, looking at the planets. And of course, I remembered the Mars Canal map by Percival Lowell. And when you look in the internet, are there any offers of a Mars Canal globe? You will find maybe one, but if you look at the price, you will realize you will never be able to get one. At least I am not able to get one, because they are in a range of 40 to 50,000 euros. And the most beautiful is from Emmy Brun, a very rare Mars Canal globe. So they are very rare. And I thought, well, let's make a Mars Canal globe. And so now we are getting to the more practical part and the problems of being a globe maker. If you want to become a globe maker, it is not like this that you can go to the city and visit the next globe making studio. Why? Because there are no globe making studios. On our planet, Earth, there are maybe one handful of traditional globe makers available. And so it is very hard to get the knowledge of how to build a globe. And there are no books, no textbooks that tell you what is step A and what is step B. So you can only try to find some information bits in the literature. You can try to watch Peter Bellaby's work and the other globe makers' work. You can try to inspect a traditionally crafted globe very, very accurately and try to understand how it is built. And basically, if you are getting a globe maker, you have got two problems. The first problem is you need a sphere. And the second problem is you need a representation of your map that fit onto a sphere. And these are called gores. And problem number one, the sphere problem, when I started to think about it, I thought very naively, this is no problem. I just go to Google, type in sphere, and then there are plenty of offers and I can choose. But if you do that, you will find yourself in a situation there are styrene balls available in do-it-yourself shops. And I ordered, of course, these styrene balls. And then you will realize these styrene balls, they have a totally different appearance. So they are very foamy, very light. So they don't have the appearance of a globe. But the bigger problem is they are no spheres. They have large deviations from perfect spheres. And why is it so important now to have a perfect sphere or nearby perfect sphere? It is important because your paper gores are mathematically transformed out of your map, and they will fit only on a perfect sphere. And if you now have an imperfect sphere and try to tip on gores that fit on a perfect sphere, you will never be able to learn getting better because you don't know where the errors are coming from. Is it because your imperfection in gore applying, or is it due to the imperfections of the sphere? So to cut a long story short, I decided to make my own spheres. And how did I do that? I let a company drill a mold for me out of aluminium by the aid of CNC drilling. And this aluminium model serves as the basis for my spheres. I have a center hole bored in the aluminium mold, which is the position for the central rod for the axis of the globe. And what I do then is I put in a smaller hemisphere inside my aluminium hemisphere and attach it by means of screws. And the intersection between the outer aluminium sphere and the inner one is filled by modern plaster mass. And after half an hour, the plaster mass hardens and it looks like this. And I can start to unmold it. And before I do that, I make some post-processings on the equatorial rim, because this is a very important structure then for applying the course. I'll show it on the next slide. So here you see a close-up of the aluminium mold, and here you see the hardened plaster mass. And by means of using a blade, I exactly remove the excess material that you can see in the slide before. You see here the excess material. By means of a blade, I can exactly remove that excess of plaster mass. And then I do this 2 times, and then I have 2 hemispheres. And these 2 plaster hemispheres are then glued together. And I am using 2 landmarks for the gore alignment. So if you think of, you bring paper strips onto that sphere, you need some landmarks that tell you where to start and where to end. And I am using the hemisphere dividing line, which naturally occurs due to the fact that I do 2 hemispheres that I glue together. So I have a very exact dividing line here. So this is the equator. And I'm positioning a little piece of paper with 12 segments at the polar region. As you see that here. So with these 2 landmarks, you are now able to align your paper cores with regards to the dividing line and the end point of the paper core. Second problem is the gores. Where to get the gores from? And this question essentially includes the question where to get the map from. And happily, Percival Lowell put the Mars Canal map in his book. And here you see the original map that has quite a small size. So it's, I would estimate 30 centimeters times 20 centimeters or so. And here you can see in this close-up that the quality of the printing is not very good. However, that map served as the basis for my Mars Canal globe. So I scanned it in and I post-processed it. First, I extracted the darker areas, the lighter areas, the canals, and so on and so on. And I transformed it into spherical gores. This is represented on the right bottom part of it. And as you can see, these gores, they look not very detailed, so I had to post-process them again. And here you see now what was the beginning. So this is the Percival Lowell original map, a detail of this map. And you can see that some of the labels are very, very difficult to read. So this one, for example, this little canal, you don't see really the canal in the original. And so it was quite a long time that I had to invest to really post-process these little details into a readable manner. And this is what I end up with, also a detail. And I started with labeling and revision of the labels. So I checked the correct spelling of the canals and the structures that Percival Lowell gave in his map. Then I colored the paper gores. And in the end, I added some background structures that you can see here. And this is one of the 12 gores finished. And in the original, it has a size of 47, around about 47 centimeters, and in length, and the x-axis is 7.85 centimeters. Yeah, and I got 12 of these scores, and also here invested a lot of time to post-processing. And by by using these 12 cores, I am now able to build a sphere, a globe. And you can imagine this, a gore is like the outside of an orange slice. So one gore is one of these orange slices. And 12 of these cores, they form a sphere. Great. So I print them out and I cut them by hand and a scissor. And so now you can start to learn applying these cores onto a sphere. And naive as I was, I thought, well, this is a thing of hours, maybe days. I ended up with 1.5 years being able to tip these paper cores onto a sphere. Why is that so complicated? So here you see all these 12 paper cores that I have produced. First of all, I am using 70-gram artist paper, natural white. I'm using waterproof inkjet printing. Please don't use laser printers. It will not be successful because a laser printer produces a plastic surface due to the melting process, and you will not be able to apply them on a three-dimensional surface. There will be wrinkles and tears and so on. So it does not end up in a good result. You have to use waterproof inkjet printing. And as a third recommendation, the question is always, which type of glue should I use? Should I use this or that? Hey, you have got paper and you want to apply paper to an object. So the best thing you can use is wallpaper paste. And it's very cheap and it's the perfect material for applying the cores onto a sphere. It has several advantages. One of the advantages, you can apply it, and if you don't like the result, you can moisture it and peel it off again. And what is an advantage and very positive thing can be very negative and very painstaking when you then start to apply the cores to your globe, because it's very difficult. So here you see a bowl, and this bowl is filled with wallpaper paste. And here you see that I pull one of the paper cores through the liquid, stripping off the excess, and then apply it to the plastosphere. And Peter Bellaby framed a sentence that is burned in my brain. And this sentence is, every error is multiplied by pi. And for me, it is obvious what he meant. It means you start applying the first core and it looks good. You then apply the second core, which is aligned to the first core. And then you realize suddenly, okay, something must be wrong because it is not straight. The latitude lines are not where they should be. The paper cores doesn't end at the polar endpoint. So that means little errors that are barely visible add up in the process of applying the second core and the third core and so on and so on. And it can always happen that you applied 6 cores and then you realize you made an error in the second core, and so you have to peel off again 2 or 3 cores. This action of applying one core takes me at least, I would say, 1 hour per core. And it is the natural thing that you have to peel cores off again because you made little errors. But as I said, the advantage of using wallpaper paste is that you can do that 2 or 3 times without damaging the other cores and so on and so on. But it is a very painstaking action. And you have to stay very, very full of hope that you will get it in the next round. Sometimes you go through a valley of tears when you realize your errors. But in the end, you will be very, very happy if you see the development of your globe making process. So with the first go, you don't see so much. But if you apply the third one, the sixth one, then you see how a three-dimensional object forms out of your paper balls. And this is very, very nice feeling and visually very attractive. And as I have said, I'm using the equatorial line for alignment of the gore as a first place, and what is here visible, the polar region as the endpoint of my gores. Yeah, you should always check if you are on track or not. So you can also measure the distance between first and last, and then you can calculate what is the tolerance. Normally, I don't accept any deviation which is larger than 0.5 millimeter or something like this, because you will never ever end up in a perfect globe when you accept larger errors. Because the paper is soaked full of wallpaper paste, it is very flexible, and this is a big advantage. So you can form your surface. You can push the gore to a direction or back to another direction by using the end of a brush, for example. But don't make it too hard, because if you make it too hard, the color could be damaged, or these straight lines, they will show that you have really worked hard on these paper balls. So you have to make it in a compromised way. If you manage to apply these 12 paper balls, congratulations, that is a wonderful first step. Then you can make the next step, which are polar caps. Polar caps have the following function. They protect the tips of the gores at the polar region and give your globe a more professional appearance. And it is used historically for decoration issues. So I put here the name of my globe and also a phrase from Schiaparelli. This is the South Pole, this is the North Pole. And for applying them, you must do something what I call an open heart operation. What you have to do is you have to peel back all these 12 tips of the gores, not completely, just the tips, to remove the little paper plate with the 12 segments. Here it is already removed. Then you can put the tips back, and then you apply your polar cap. And as you can see, it now makes a very clean and nice appearance. All the wood working parts are made outside my manufactory. So I made the globe stand based on the red moon globe, and also the caps at the top of the globe are constructed by myself. And when everything is done right, you end up with a nice, traditionally crafted globe of planet Mars, showing how people over 100 years ago thought about Mars and about intelligent life and so on and so forth. Production requires around about 15 working hours, so it's quite a long process, and I can only do it outside my working hours. So when I'm doing it, it's normally during the nighttime. The time of production is around about 3 to 4 months, so quite a long time. And I build them only on request. So I don't have them on stock. I'm not a factory. I don't make mass productions or so on. For me, these are singular objects that I'm building, and I build them for people that love them. And I build only around about 5 globes per year or something like this. Okay, so that was the story about Mars. So let's go on to our moon. And as I said, this is a completely different type of globe. It is a NASA-based moon globe. It is not a fantastic map, not based on ideas about Martians that want to grow crops on their planet, but it is based on the Lunar Orbital Laser Altimeter data. And this data is public domain, so it is available at the NASA webpage, so you can download it, and I have done so. And yeah, why do I show Easter rabbits here? If you want to build a relief globe, a hollow relief globe, then you can use exactly the same engineer technology that is used for building chocolate Easter rabbits or chocolate Santa Claus. It's called a rotocasting process. But you first need a model. You first need what we call a mother model of the moon. So where to get it from? This is the rotocasting machine that you also need, but first you need a mother model of the moon, then you need a silicon mold of your mother model, and then you can use rotocasting technology to reproduce the moon models. As I have said, I took the data of the Lola and I transformed it into a three-dimensional model. You can see it here on screen. And this 3D model of the moon then you can use for 3D printing. And at that time when I started, everybody was talking about 3D printing. That was something like everybody was making at home, super cheap, no problem. I found it very, very difficult to find a company who was able to produce out of my data a sufficiently qualified mother model in one piece. And the size of the moon globe should be 30 centimeters in diameter. And I found only 2 companies in Germany, and fortunately, one of these companies were able to produce the mother model. At that time, it was everything different than cheap. So I had really to invest a lot of money into this mother model. But I did that, and with this mother model, then I could do step number 2. Here you see the mother model, and it is prepared for silicon molding. So this moon model is placed on a table with a hole, and I placed some landmarks here, and then basically put silicone mass onto this mother model. And after it dried out, around about 48 hours or so, I built a hard shell to protect it. And then I turned it 180 degrees. And then you see again, here is the mother model, the other hemisphere, and this is the finished hemisphere. And you can then put on silicone on the remaining hemisphere. And when that is dried out, you are ready for takeoff. So then you have your silicon mold in a hardened shell. And this is just the southern hemisphere. There is, of course, the northern hemisphere. And this you can use for the rotational process. Here again, you see the hard shell. Then you see the silicon mold. It is placed in a hard shell and is ready for taking the plaster mass. Here I copied out of the film that Christoph did for me a screenshot where you can see the plaster mass floating into the silicon mold. And after that is done, the mold is closed and it is put on the rotocasting machine. This machine I had to build together with Tino Weinsheimer, so it's not easily to, well, you cannot buy it in the Rewe shop or in the Aldi shop. There are some professional producers, but they are very, very expensive. And so I decided to let construct it from the sketch by Tino. Tino is a very gifted technician, and he had done it in a wonderful short time for me. So you put that plaster-filled mold into the rotocaster, and then you start the rotocasting machine. Rotocasting means that you rotate your mold in X and Y axis with a certain ratio. And this certain ratio ensures that the plaster mass touches every spot inside that mold. And when everything is done in the right way, so you now see it turns and turns and turns, takes about half an hour. If everything has been done all right, you end up with a perfect hollow moon sphere, a reproduction of your mother model. So you open now here the hard shell, and here you see a perfect moon reproduction of your mother model. And then you are very, very happy and satisfied and say, wow, this process was successful, but then the hard job starts. You see again the moon model, you see it's white. So this is not the moon I'd like to see. I want to see the moon as it is. So I want to see albedo on the moon. And that means now for you, hand painting. And this is really the most time-consuming part of building the moon relief globe. So based on atlases and software, I'm trying to paint the albedo as accurately as I can, but it is handmade, so that means not everything is super perfect. I'm constantly striving for perfection, and I'm learning each time when I build the moon globe to getting better, to focus on specific details, and to satisfy my customers. And also here, I can say around about 15 working hours, production time 3 to 4 months, and I only put them on request. And with this, I'd like to come to the end. I'd like to thank a few people, and I'd like to say that I am feeling like standing on the shoulders of giants. So many people before me started to make moon relief globes, starting to make traditionally crafted globes. And it was only possible to do it due to these people. And first of all, I'd like to thank Christoph Hümann, who's a photographer and filmmaker from Hamburg, beautiful guy, makes wonderful work. Oliver Bartmann from my hometown Kassel, he produced the music for my movies and so on, wonderful guy, big friend. Tino Weinsheimer, who produced the rotocasting machine. Caroline Poulin, my US agent, who supported me all the time for the US market. Thank you, Caroline, for all that. Richtig Druck in Hamburg produced the moon mother model. Lutil Sifir in Paris, she shared generously her knowledge in globe making, globe restoration, materials, maps, and so on. Wonderful person. Then, of course, the Moon Project. Maybe you know that there are many other people that produce moons, like lamps and so on. They made a wonderful movie that inspired me a lot, and I thank them, of course. And of course, Peter Bellaby, his studio inspired my own work and getting me to starting the globe business. And last but not least, Thomas Klose, who produced the mold for making the spheres. And with this, I'd like to thank everybody for your kind attention, and thank you for having me here.
Right, I just thought so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this really informative and interesting lecture. I really enjoyed it, Michael. It was really amazing. I have a deep respect for the tremendous work what you are doing and working for such a globe. And yeah,
thank you, Sabine. Thank you very much for your warm words.
Yeah, but it's really amazing. And if you see how many working hours you spend for one globe, yeah. We have people watching from Toronto, Canada, from Germany, and from where else? Yeah, and Bernard, I see in your face you have some question.
Yes, thank you. So I just I arrived in my capsule in Barcelona, but before I was just on my way to my hotel. I'm in my space capsule. I was surprised about the first globe you mentioned, where they referred only to images from Lunik, but in '59 we had the first image of the full far side by the Soviets. So why was you mentioned your globe was acknowledged to 62. So I don't understand why this was not yet spread all over the world, or did it take time before the images from the whole far side were distributed?
Yeah, good question. My impression here is that this moon globe was produced in many countries based on the same map. And it took some time to spread around the globe. So there was a German version of that globe, which was built in the GDR. Then there was an English version and an American version, and they all copied this old map. And so in our nowadays, you can very fast spread the news and spread that there is new map. But at that time, my getting is that it took a long time for producing these maps, and this information flow was not that fast as nowadays.
Okay.
No.
Oh, that could be. Of course, also, I mean, the first image that they got with Mare Moscoviense, I mean, it was amazing, historical, not the best quality photographically, but okay. It was an amazing achievement for humankind.
Yeah, so there is a nice book about the early mapping of the moon by the Soviets, and when you look at the first maps, they are very noisy, and a lot of interpretation was necessary to find out what was noise and what was signal. But as you said, a wonderful achievement of mankind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you planning to make a modern map of Mars or a relief map of Mars?
I don't know what the next project will be. Yeah, I cannot really say. What I find interesting would be the moons of Mars. And there are also historical models for it, and they appear quite funny because they have this egg-shape thing, and I really think this would be cool to build as a project in the future. I have built planet Venus based on a map from 1789.
Wow.
Francesco Bianchini, who added this map to a book chapter or article that he wrote, and with this he gave the people the material to build their own globes, and that one I have already built. What will be the next project? I cannot say, but I'm sure there will be a lot of ideas. I'm getting ideas from people all around the world. Could you make this or this globe? So many fantastic ideas.
And are you giving workshops where people can learn it?
Honestly spoken, I would love to do that, but at the moment I cannot really do that because I have a full position in Frankfurt, and so my time is so limited. I am very happy that I can do that for myself because it's a passion. I love to do it. I don't do it because I have to, but I do it because I choose to do it. And for me, it is like a simulation of life in a short period, going through the valley of tears, being happy in the end. So a very intense activity. And maybe in the future, I will be able to also give workshops because people ask me, okay, the theoretical introduction is very important and very nice, but can we learn it by hands with you? And I'm sure that I could teach people to do their globes, and people will have a lot of fun building their own globes. Maybe this is something that I will do in future when I'm old and have gray hair.
I would visit this course. Adriano, you have a question?
Yes. Well, I was fascinated by this presentation. It's really very interesting. Thank you very much, Michael. And it came to my mind that a few days ago, we had some meetings with our American members of the Space Renaissance, and Barbara King is a space artist that will be also present in our festival in Berlin, came up with a very good idea to make a space art contest taking as subjects the many objects that are in the solar system. So, by the way, I had an Excel list of the 56 objects that are in our solar system, because I made this list for my novel that I am writing, and who knows when I will complete it, maybe never. However, okay, this is. Can you see it?
Yes.
I'm sharing. Yeah, maybe try to make it a little bit.
It will take time to make a globe for all of them, huh?
No, well, I don't know. Maybe it could be interesting to have a representation of I don't know, Ceres or Pallas or Vesta or some Jupiter moons and so on, from the I don't know, from the biggest objects to the smallest ones. The biggest one is Jupiter. I'm sorry that all the names are in Italian language. However, okay. It's always Jupiter, of course, Saturn, Urano, and so on. To the smallest one that are Themisto and Autonoe, that are satellites of Jupiter, and so on. So there is plenty of objects, and the amazing thing is that they are all of them are different. Now that we can see the pictures from the NASA and ESA probes that are going to take pictures, closer pictures, we see that they are very different, each object from the other ones, and that's fascinating, because it would be really fantastic to explore, to go there and to see, and also to have perfect representation as you do. So maybe, I don't know if you could be interested to get in touch with Barbara and the people that are trying to raise this contest.
Yes.
Because I think you could be very much inspiring with your work for young artists and young and not young artists.
Yes,
yeah,
wonderful idea. And I can also imagine that it has an educational value, because if you think in a museum, if you show models of these objects, and many children, for example, they don't even know that they exist, and they need a visual representation, and they need something that they can touch to really understand this is a real object. This is something that is around us. I think it would be a lovely educational thing to do that.
Yeah, who knows if somebody already tried to represent all of these 50 objects that are present in, to make three-dimensional.
Yeah,
it'd be a beautiful idea to talk maybe also with the European Space Agency. Bernard, what do you think?
So we did a project. Okay, I was involved in a project like 10 years ago, where we had a sphere, and we developed a software to project images of the different planets on this sphere.
Virtual.
Yeah. Well, no, real projection. I mean, it was done with projectors at the time, and this could be quite versatile, because then you can do all spherical objects quite well. Of course, the objects which are not spherical, it's a bit more complicated to project on a sphere, but you can give some appearance of it. So that could be also a digital project, because now you can have systems that calculate the anamorphism of what you need to project with, for instance, what we use like 6 projectors to have a good visibility. And the nice thing as well, you can model, simulate the rotation of the object, or even an object that is live, like the Earth with clouds, or Mars also, or Jupiter also has some cloud. You can do that as a time series, as a movie.
Yeah, this is a very interesting idea, and I like the projecting part of the story, because if you want to have a permanent object, you can also think of bringing a light-sensitive emulsion onto the sphere, then project it, and then you have got some kind like a cyanotype or like a phototype. And then you can take this for artists, for example, that they can work with. This is a wonderful idea.
Okay.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to say, thinking about your presentation, you said you needed a perfect sphere, but maybe the planets and the others are not perfect.
Right.
The, Earth is an orange, more or less.
Right.
And so I think also the other planets are not perfect sphere. So
you are absolutely right.
But
so
you needed it in order to make the design of the thing.
So the technique is based on the idea of having a sphere as the model, and for this, yes, you would need a perfect sphere, and yes, you are right. If you have our planet, it is not a perfect sphere, so this is a deviation from reality. Then that is true. That is true. Basically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is for the traditionally crafted globe. It's a problem because you have these 12 paper cores. Of course, you could apply more sophisticated transformations of your maps into cores to really allow fitting on a non-perfect sphere. It would be possible, but of course, one has to think, one has to try it out, and yeah.
Yes, more complicated, of course. Yes.
Interesting. For those who are watching, Michael will be in presence at our festival in Berlin, and I would like to point out that in some days, actually in 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, it will start on the 7th of July in Berlin at the Aschenholt Observatory. We have a really, really nice program. I can show it here. Oh, moment, I have to remove the background. Yeah, genau. Just a second. So, now you see my chaos, but I can show you the program from Berlin, and you can see the Aschenholt Observatory. Really, really nice and historical place, and here are our sponsors, so I have to make a little bit advertisement for our sponsors. You are invited to come. Michael will talk there, Bernard will talk there in presence, Adriano will talk there, myself, and we have also other very interesting guests. And so I'm really happy that you will come, or I hope you will come. You also have the possibility to join us virtually. And Michael, I thank you so much for your lecture, for being with us, and for taking your time for us to introduce us. And I hope you will bring us something interesting to our festival, so we can fascinate our audience at the festival. I wish you all a nice time, and we see us in 2 weeks on Monday. And yeah, and I hope.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah.
Okay, just one thing that I sent you, because the news is of today, and I wrote to you and Sabine and Bernard today to give you this news, and I already inserted in our program. We will have Helga Zepp-LaRoche
good
presence, speaking at the first day, the 7th, at _day. That will be a very important presence from the political point of view. She will speak about the actuality of Kraft-Erike vision for our words of today, and that will be a very, very interesting lecture, of course. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, actually, I have also a comment about the Martian moons, because we were testing instruments that we are going to send to Phobos with the Japanese, the German Aerospace Center and the French Space Agency. So we'll have a launch of a mission in
You are frozen.
2024.
You are frozen, Bernard. Oh, Bernard disappeared. I'm so sorry for this. We can wait for a moment that you will come back, but I also would like to mention that at the festival we have a very interesting program, and you can watch at our website, and you can also register and participate virtually. I wish you all a nice evening.
Wait a moment, because I have another thing to say. That today I succeeded to do a thing that I wanted to do is a technical thing. But now we have Space Renaissance TV page. It means that that page is always tuned on our YouTube channel, and whatever we are streaming live, you will see it there. So we have a link now to the Space Renaissance TV that is always linked on the YouTube channel. You will see the next coming event when it is not streaming, and when it will start streaming, you will see it live. So no more needed to have links, YouTube single links, URL, and so on.
So we are at TV now.
We have a TV, yes.
So we are now on TV.
Yes, yes.
Michael, you are on TV.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay.
Okay. I wish you all a nice evening.
No, you can't, Sabine. You can't. Yes.
Okay, I wish you all a nice evening.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Sorry, let me say it. And don't forget to join Space Renaissance as members, to join our crew, because we need you. We need many people to support us, to work with us, to be enthusiasts, and to go to space with us. Okay. So now you can.
Yeah, okay. Also, thank you so much. Thank you, Michael, and thank you to our audience for joining us, and we see us in Berlin. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much to all. Thank you very much.
Bye,
It was a pleasure.